Hi, first and second grade. I hope you had a great week. I have another fun project for you this week. This week we're going to be talking about patterns. Now, patterns is something that 2 or 3 things repeat in a certain order over and over and over again. So you might have a shirt with stripes or polka dots or little unicorns all over it. Those are patterns. The curtains behind me, patterns with the dark blue and the lighter blue, then the dark blue and then the lighter blue. Also a pattern. We're going to be looking at numbers and patterns this week. So grab yourself a paper, a pencil, an eraser, and either a black marker, a black pen, a black colored pencil, and you'll be good to go. Grab those things and we'll get started. So our project this week is based off an artist named Jasper Johns. This is one of his pieces, and he did a lot of paintings that used letters, numbers, and things that we easily recognize. So you can see here it says 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're all numbers, but each block that the number is in looks just a little bit different. Not all the numbers are done completely the same with the exact same colors at the exact same spot of each block. That's where our project comes in. We're also going to be looking at numbers, but instead of color, we're going to be sticking with one color and white. And where we're going to change things is the patterns. So each number has a different pattern inside the number, but also around the number. Okay? So first thing you want to do to start is get your white paper. And you're going to take that and you're going to fold it in half, just like you would if you were making a card for somebody. So fold that paper in half and open it up. Right now you have 2 halves that are the same size. Then you're going to take it and fold it the other way. Line the edges up. Make a nice crease. Now you should have 4 spots that are all the same size. You have the crease that makes each section easy to find. But what we want to do now is actually take a ruler. You don't have to take a ruler if you don't have one. You can just do it with your pencil in the crease. But take your ruler or your pencil and just do yourself a favor and go over the lines of the crease just so they're a little bit easier to see. We know that they're there, but as we start filling patterns in, it might be a little bit harder to see the crease. So just go over them with your pencil so they're a little bit easier to find. The next part is we need to start putting the numbers in our blocks. Now I used 1, 2, 3, 4, but if your favorite number is 3, maybe you want to start with 3, 4, 5, 6. You don't necessarily have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, or maybe you want to start at 0 and do 0, 1, 2, 3. Really up to you. You want to make these kind of like a block letter so that we can go and put the pattern inside them. So for the number 1, you want to start by drawing that line for the middle of the 1 or the big part of the 1 there. And I just have 2 lines next to each other. That way I have that whole empty space in here to fill. Draw the bottom. So if this is your number 1, I have this part done, and now I'm doing this part. And the only thing I'm doing is I'm just adding a second line and the end caps or the end spots so that I have a space to fill with pattern. Now I need to do the top here. Clean those up a little bit. And there I have my number 1. Now I'm ready to go to number 2. So number 2 looks like this. Again, I'm just making it so that there's a second line going around it. Almost like I'm making 2 number 2s right next to each other to make it look more 3D, make it look block, that I have space to fill those patterns in. So there's the bottom of my 2, right like that. It does make you think a little bit more about how to make each number, a little bit more probably than you would if you were filling in your math worksheet for the day.
So don't get frustrated if you have to go back and fix your number because it doesn't look quite right. Trust me, I've fixed mine a bunch of times when I was working on these. And you can see I'm fixing these for you too. And they don't have to be perfect. Remember, this is your interpretation of the number, so it doesn't have to look exactly the same in each one. Number 3. It's just very important that you make sure you leave enough space to fill pattern in on each number, because that's the whole focus of this. And then number 4. And like I said, you don't have to do 1, 2, 3, 4. If you have other numbers that you'd rather do, that's fine. It's totally up to you. Also, if you are having trouble making the numbers, maybe you have some stencils at home that you can use to make the numbers. That might be helpful to see how the numbers are shaped and draw them on your paper too. I realize not everybody has stencils, but it's just another option to use. So now I have all of my numbers drawn. I'm going to take a black marker, a black crayon, a black colored pencil, something with a nice black outline, or a nice black line, I should say, that we can just trace our numbers with. You want this line to be a little bit thicker, just so it helps the number stick out, since we are going to be filling the background with pattern as well as the number. So I'm just tracing over all my pencil lines with the marker. Now it's going to get a little bit tricky when you get to numbers like 4, where there's that spot on the inside here that's not filled in, that's part of the background. I don't want to trace the line that goes across because I don't want to have the thick black line inside my number 4. So I'm making sure that I only trace the lines that are the outside of the number, none of the lines that would be on the inside of the number. So now I have all of my numbers traced. Now I'm ready to start filling in with patterns. And you can see on each number, I have one kind of pattern, and then on the background or behind the number, I have a different pattern. So the numbers still stick out, but the numbers are also a little bit more interesting to look at than just a solid colored number. So I'm going to use a thinner marker to fill my patterns in with Sharpie. Now I'm doing this with black, but if you wanted to, you really could do it with a different color. Use purple if your favorite color is purple. Do all of them with purple and different patterns with purple. If you wanted to, you could mix colors. I'm just doing black and white because it's kind of basic and it makes the numbers stick out more. But really, if you wanted to use colors, go for it. It'll still turn out neat, and it might add something that mine doesn't have. So for the first number here, my number 1, all I'm going to do is just fill the whole thing with different size circles. Some big circles, some medium circles, some small circles. Fill the whole thing with different circles. I'm going to fill all the numbers with pattern first and then go back and fill the backgrounds. So I would fill the whole number with this. I'm not going to have you watch me do that because I don't want to take your whole day watching me draw circles. But for the number 2 here, I'm going to take a ruler. And again, you don't have to use a ruler. If you don't have one, a piece of straight cardboard will work, or you don't have to use one at all. What I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to fill my number 2 with diagonal lines. So there's my number 2. For number 3, I'm actually going to do zigzag lines. Fill those last little bits of ones in there. Now I'm doing this with the marker right away. You're probably going to want to do it with pencil first. Just because, remember, I have a lot more practice than you do. I've been doing this for a bit longer than you have. And I still make mistakes doing it with just the marker right away. So I would definitely recommend you do this with pencil first. But if you feel confident and can do it with the marker, go for it. But remember, we can't erase marker, we can't erase crayon. Depending on the colored pencil, you might be able to erase that. So there's my number 3. And then for number 4, what I'm going to do is make different size spirals, almost like I did with the circles. Make some smaller spirals, some bigger spirals, and they're all touching. So I'm not leaving a whole lot of white space. I'm filling the whole number up pretty solid with these different sizes of spirals. So once you have all the numbers filled up, the next step then would be to go and fill the backgrounds. Now, the patterns that I'm showing you for both the numbers and the backgrounds, don't feel that you have to use these. The page where I have the video posted, you'll see I have some sheets posted that show you different ideas for patterns. Feel free to use those too. Those are there to give you ideas for different patterns to use, because I realize some of these patterns might be a little harder than others for you. Another place to look for patterns is just look around your house. I'm sure that you have lots of different patterns on your clothes, possibly even hanging on your walls and the curtains on the sofa and pillows. There's patterns everywhere. I'm sure if you look around, you'll see some ideas for patterns that might be easier or you might like better than the patterns I used. Feel free to use those. You don't have to use mine. So behind the number 1 here, I want to do almost like a checkerboard pattern. So I'm going to take my ruler. I'm going to draw a bunch of straight lines that go up and down like an ice cream cone or vertical. Now I'm doing this kind of quick, but it's probably going to take you a little bit longer. And then after I have those lines going the whole way across that block, because I'm only filling the block that the number 1 is in with this type of pattern. So I fill the rest of the block with those lines going vertical. Then I'm going to draw lines going horizontal like a banana split. And let me get a couple on here and you can see what I mean. Now it looks almost like a checkerboard or a grid pattern. When you're using a ruler to draw your pattern, you need to be very careful that you're making sure you don't put the background pattern inside your number, or if you're using a ruler to fill your number in, that you don't put the background pattern, the number pattern on the background. Using a ruler does make it a little bit harder to remember where the pattern needs to go instead of just drawing a line straight across that whole section. For number 2, what I did was kind of like a scallop. So to do that, you start at the bottom of your section here and draw half circles the whole way across. Then for the next row, I want this row of half circles to overlap where these two meet. So the center of the half circle here is going to be where these two touch, the ends of these two touch, just like that. This one always reminds me of like scales on a fish or a mermaid tail, but it's called scallops. And I'm just going to do that the whole way across. Again, I'm doing this with the Sharpie right away. It's probably going to be better for you if you do it in the pencil first. But if you want to try it with Sharpie or with marker or colored pencil, whatever you might be using, I definitely welcome you to try it. And I would just keep going like that the whole way up. Now for the third one, this one is definitely a lot trickier than any of the others. I made that checkerboard pattern, but I filled each section in with different lines. So I'll just do a little bit of that to show you. Take my ruler again, and I'm doing this grid pattern, but I'm making the squares of the grid bigger. So I'm leaving more space between my lines. I'm just going to do this bottom section to show you. So what I did was, on a checkerboard, I would have black, red, black, red, black, red. On all of the squares on a checkerboard that would be colored black, I'm going to draw lines going horizontal like a banana split. On all the spots that would be red, I'm going to draw lines going vertical like an ice cream cone. And you can see it does give a very neat effect, but it is probably one of the more difficult patterns on this sheet to draw. The next pattern for number 4, I'm going to do almost like a plaid. So I'm going to draw 2 diagonal lines close together and then leave a big space between them. And again, you would fill the whole block going that way, and then I would turn it and draw lines crisscrossing the opposite direction to get that plaid effect. And you would keep going that way.
So I hope you have fun playing with patterns this week. Remember, you don't need to do all the patterns that I showed you. I tried to show some harder patterns along with some easier patterns just to give you an idea of different things you can do with this. Remember, come up with your own patterns. Look at those sheets that I posted with the video. Look around your house for some patterns. You don't need to do all the same patterns I did. I'd love to see some new patterns. I'd love to see your project when you're done with it. If mom or dad could help you email me a picture of it. You guys did a really great job with those balloon dogs last week. I hope you had fun with them. I thought it was kind of a fun subject matter for our art project, and I hope you had enjoyed it just as much as I did. And I will see you next week with a brand new project. So have a great week. Bye, boys and girls.